Snow White by Grimm Brothers. Once a queen sat sewing by the window with a frame of black ebony. She pricked her finger with the needle. 3 drops of blood fell into the snow. The queen said, I wish for a child who has skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as this ebony. 10 months later, she had a baby girl as she had wished for. People called her Snow White. The queen died after her baby was born. A year later, the king married a new queen. The new queen was beautiful but too proud. She would ask her talking mirror, Mirror, mirror in my hand, who's the fairest in the land? The mirror would reply, You are the fairest in the land. With this, the queen was happy. Snow White grew more and more beautiful. One day, the queen asked again, Mirror, mirror in my hand, who's the fairest in the land? The mirror said, Snow White is the fairest in the land. The queen was angry and called the huntsman. Kill Snow White in the woods. The huntsman took Snow White into the woods. Snow White begged, Please don't kill me. I want to return from the woods. He set her free. Snow White was alone in the woods. She ran over sharp stones and through stones. She met some beasts, but they didn't hurt her. She ran and ran until it became dark. She saw a little cabin and went in. Everything inside was small and neat. 7 little plates and glasses were on the table. She ate some food and fell asleep. 7 dwarfs came home at night. Oh, look! How beautiful! Indeed. The next morning, she explained what had happened to her. The dwarfs said, If you cook, wash clothes, and clean the house, you may stay here. Back at the castle, the queen asked, Mirror, mirror in my hand, who's the fairest in the land? The mirror answered, Snow White with the 7 dwarfs is the fairest in the land. What? Is she still alive? The queen again planned to kill Snow White. The queen, made up as a peddler, went to the cabin. She shouted, Good wares for sale? Snow White asked. Miss Peddler, what do you have? I have corsets, dear lady. I will tie the laces for you, she said, tying the laces tightly. Snow White couldn't breathe and fell down. You are not the fairest anymore. The queen was satisfied and left. The 7 dwarfs were very surprised. They cut the laces with the scissors. Snow White came back to life. It must have been the wicked queen. Be careful next time, they said. The queen was sure that Snow White was dead. She asked, Mirror, mirror in my hand, who's the fairest in the land? The mirror answered, Snow White with the 7 dwarfs is the fairest in the land. The angry queen made a poisoned comb. She went to the cabin again. Buy some nice combs. Take a look, dear lady, the queen said, showing the poisoned comb. How pretty! Snow White exclaimed. Let me comb your hair, said the queen. She stuck the comb into Snow White's hair. Snow White fell down from the poison. The fairest girl is gone, the queen said and left. The seven dwarfs came home and pulled the comb from her hair. Snow White came back to life. Back at the castle, the queen asked, "Mirror, mirror in my hand, who's the fairest in the land?" The mirror answered, "Snow White with the seven dwarfs is the fairest." The queen became angry. "Snow White, you shall die." The queen made a poisonous apple. The queen went to the cabin and shouted, "Apples for sale!" Snow White peeped out of the windows. "Just try this apple," the queen said, cutting the apple in two. The queen took the green half and handed the red half to Snow White. Alas, the red half had poison. Snow White took a bite and fell to the ground. "Your seven dwarfs can't save you this time," the queen said, laughing wickedly. The seven dwarfs saw Snow White lying again. They loosened her laces, checked her hair, and washed her hands and feet. But nothing helped. They couldn't bring her back to life. The seven dwarfs cried for 3 days. Snow White's cheeks were red as if she were alive. "We can't bury her under the dark ground." The seven dwarfs made a glass coffin and laid Snow White inside. The seven dwarfs took the coffin to the mountain. Each dwarf took a turn to watch over her. Even the owls, crows, and pigeons watched over her. One day, a prince saw Snow White in the glass coffin. He loved her at first sight and asked, "Can I have the coffin? I will give you anything you want." The dwarfs said, "We are sorry, but we can't." The prince said, "I will cherish Snow White as jewelry. I will always keep her by my side." The seven dwarfs could tell he was true. They gave him the glass coffin. The subject started carrying the glass coffin. One stumbled, and the coffin shook hard. Then the poisoned apple popped out of Snow White's mouth. She took a deep breath, opened the coffin, and sat up. They were all surprised and overjoyed. The prince said to Snow White, "I love you. Please be my wife." Snow White fell in love with him. Soon, Snow White and the prince got married. The wicked queen came to the wedding and was punished for her evil deeds. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after.